Believe it or not, Captain America looks even worse than it did before. And again, another thing that maybe the horse is dead already, but I can't help but notice it's the only thing that they're propping up right now because there really isn't much in the box office. And in its third weekend, it's a dismal failure. Let's dive into it. Here we go. Now, before we get started, quick reminder, I do this almost every video now. I am on my way to 100K with your help. So if you are here for the first time or the 1000th, please click on the subscribe button. It's absolutely free. Turn on notifications and go ahead and hit the like button while you're down there. I'm sure you're going to want to comment later. This is going to be a banger, but let's jump into it. Captain America Brave New World passes 150 million at the US box office, and it only took almost 3 weekends to get there. A holiday weekend, plus 2 additional, plus, a decent chunk of theaters still showing this film. Only 300 lost over the course of 3 weeks, and that says an awful lot when you started over 4,000. This movie is in huge trouble. It has gained no audience and is performing like a weekday of any other blockbuster in 2019. This is not good news for Disney or Marvel very specifically because they don't have much to offer in the future. And if you can believe with your own 2 eyes, some of the what looks like AI concept art that is coming out about what Doomsday is going to look like, we're in huge trouble. Or maybe I should say, they're in huge trouble. Look, right now, $300 million worldwide isn't a lot to shake a stick at. This is a tentpole film that probably cost well north of even this total gross number. In fact, I would say this film is easily in the 325, 350 range, if not even higher. And we've heard some outlandish numbers. The production budget that was originally thrown out there, we all know, is complete balderdash because you can't shoot a movie 2 complete times for $180 million. Not only that, add in all the other reshoots that had to get done, and this thing is a hot mess. And you can tell you're at a more shilly site when they say things like this. After a strong opening, please. Marvel Studios' Captain America Brave New World was hit with a sharp second week drop. Of course it was, when you calculate the way that you did, and you count 5 days, 3 days, and then try to make it look even less worse than it actually was. I'm gonna have to check on that. And then to go on to claim that, but the movie is holding relatively well as it heads into the third weekend in theaters. Well, we're going to investigate that in just a moment, and I think you'll agree with me, it's not less worse. Despite mostly negative reviews and a B- cinema score, yes, embarrassing, the lowest for any MCU movie so far, the 4th Captain America movie without Captain America, and the first with Sam Wilson wielding the shield, which is not Captain America. He's Falcon, just in case you're keeping track. It has managed to pass 150 million in the US by just barely creeping over the finish line on Friday's box office earnings, and 300 million worldwide, which is, as I've said before, terrible news, because if your international audience isn't twice what your American audience is, you're in huge, huge trouble with one of these giant superhero tentpole type of films. Brave New World had a reported production budget of $180 million. True. But this is before marketing costs, and some believe an actual budget that would be closer to $300 million after extensive reshoots. Well, for once, you're on the right path, my friend. Even if this is not accurate, the movie may still struggle to make much of a profit by the end of its run. No profit. In fact, heavy financial loss. Even so, this is a positive sign that Marvel may not have an outright flop on its hands. Would that be good enough for Kevin Feige and the studio higher-ups? Highly unlikely. Let's take a look at what the numbers are so far this weekend, up to Saturday at this point, which is when this video came out, by the way, if you're watching it later. You can see here, according to the numbers, they're not quite at 300 million yet, but close enough, $299.6 million. Now, we've already seen that based on what its performance should have been, it's well under the cone of goodness and down below in the area of sadness on the numbers little scale here. You kind of want to be between these 2 points on this yellow band, and well, they just aren't. This movie is not doing the bare minimum by quite a substantial margin, and it looks even worse when you compare it to a more successful film. Believe it or not, Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania did better than Captain America: Brave New World by quite a long measure. And it also had quite a different budget and will likely be much less at the end of the day than what Captain America: Brave New World actually is. So far, things aren't going well here. And as you can see, the worldwide audience for Captain America: Brave New World needs another $164.6 million to catch up. There isn't enough time nor enough interest in this film at this point, considering that it's well behind in the international area as well. Day-to-day comparisons show that on the third Friday, we ended at 152.2 million for Captain America: Brave New World, and yet we were already at 177.4 million with Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania. Now, why is this important? Well, these films were released fairly close together and in the same month and time period. This kind of gives us a good basis for comparison because they kind of fall along the same lines, and the difference in those lines is still over $25 million. That's an awful lot of ground to make up, especially as things start to decline. Overall, the trades are having to deal with the same problem that they've had for the last couple of years: a very boring MCU and a very boring Disney overall, with a few exceptions here and there. Captain America: Brave New World at 15 million leads the second lowest weekend year to date. Okay, and that's the heart of the problem. There's not a lot of competition out there. Captain America: Brave New World will artificially perform because there's just not much else to see. You're seeing very little interest in Last Breath, which is gasping at $7 million, and everything else from there is, well, disappointing. In fact, when you look at the overall weekend with Saturday's projections in, you're going to have an estimated $55.5 million domestically in theaters, and that's not good. Worse yet, the international numbers that'll be coming in will be coming in much, much lower. And I don't think there's a prayer for much recovery until we may get to Snow White, at which we will officially decide just how embarrassing that will be. A year ago, as a matter of fact, you had Dune Part 2 with $82.5 million, leading to a $114.6 million frame for the weekend. It's a big chunk of change. Not as much as you would hope for, or at least what you would expect, but better than it had been in a while. And next weekend, Warner Brothers is going to be dropping the Bong Joon-ho sci-fi feature Mickey 17, which I think will actually do pretty well, at least for the first weekend. And since this director seems to be a hot commodity at the moment, I think those numbers will be pretty impressive. So with a third weekend total of 15.5 million, maybe less, maybe 14.5 million, the minus 47% hold is nothing good. And that's, of course, because you're losing IMAX screens, which are big earners, because premium large format is a increased ticket price. Worse yet, it's possible that Last Breath will maybe not make the numbers that were projected and may settle for less than the $7.3 million that is anticipated now. Also, Neon's film Monkey, or The Monkey, looks like it's going to have a decent hold with only a 55% drop and stick around 6.2 million. You don't want your second and third place films to be that close, and you really don't want your second place film to be in its first weekend, looking at some more disappointing results down the way. Regardless, Captain America: Brave New World is as boring as ever and stuck in 3,800 theaters, which means it should be doing much better numbers, and it's just not going to. Overall, we're just in a stagnant box office situation, and this used to not be quite the problem it is now, because usually by the second week of February, you were already off to the races again with a good, steady dose of films. But unfortunately, this year, we're waiting until the summer rush, and that's going to be a problem for each one of those films coming out, because guess what? they'll have tons of competition and have avoided the time when there wasn't any. Which leads me to a question. Why? Why are the studios avoiding opportunities to set themselves apart from competition? I don't have an answer for that, but I think we'll find out what happens mid-March when things start to really heat up, and not just on the thermostat. So that'll leave me with a question for you. Audience participation time. Do you think Captain America Brave New World will bust out of the doldrums magically and return to some decent box office numbers? Do you think that Disney will make any profit at all? Or do you think that this film is indicative of what's actually happening to Marvel as it slowly deconstructed itself to oblivion? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands because it's good hygiene. And until next time, see ya for real.